Okay, welcome traders, hope you're all well. We're going to cover the long overdue video regarding volume profile. We're going to cover this in two segments. Okay, we're going to cover volume profile for the DOM as well as delta. We are also going to cover volume profile for your standard intraday chart. Okay, so this is going to be a relatively longer video, so make sure that you've got your chart books up, you've got everything prepped, and you're ready to learn. Okay, so you can get these chart books in Discord. However, I think it's best for you guys to actually learn what goes behind the study, because if you know what goes into the study, then you understand what it's displaying and all of the context around it. Okay, so what we're going to first do is we are going to run through the profile for the DOM. Okay, now I'm going to drag this into the middle so it's slightly easier for you guys to focus on and concentrate. Okay, so this is the recent session. I'm just filming this after the close of market on Friday the 17th of May. Okay, so this is the recent price action of what's going on. We can see that the POC here was for the session was 20 evens. Okay, so we're going to run through the settings for this in the DOM. I'm going to give you another little exciting feature that allows you to quickly clear the delta so that you can see the recent bid and offer dominant side for when you've just entered the trade so that you can reset it. So we're going to run through that at the end of the video. Okay, so first things first, need to make sure you've got a DOM up. Okay, if you've not already configured your DOM, I'll leave a link in the description so that you can watch that video on what is the DOM and how to configure it in set of charts. The link will be in the description, so watch that video first if you've not got this set up. Okay, but providing you've got your DOM up, okay, you need to go to analysis studies. Okay, and then it will be volume by price that you'll have up. Okay, so make sure and add that into your chart. Okay, and then make sure and click on settings for when you add it. Now, the draw mode for this is always going to be volume profile. Okay, the number of period back to reference for this, you always set to 0, and you want the tick per volume bar is set to 1. I think these are relatively standard. Now, for the DOM specifically, I like to have this set up, right? You've got a number of different options in here. I like to have this set up, okay, where it's going to be one period from most recent period start to end. So basically what this means is when the pre-market opens of a new session, the DOM will clear and it will start populating from the new trading session, and it gives you pre-market and regular trading hours for that one session. Okay, so that's what that specific setting is. I don't think there's a point in the DOM in having previous days there. You know, the DOM is only going to be relevant for that specific trading day because everything changes every day. Okay, so you want to make sure for the volume graph period type that you have one period from most recent period start to end. Okay, then set as independent volume profile for TPO chart is set to no because we're not doing TPO charts. Okay, you always want to make sure that the period time is set to days, and it's set for the period length is set to 1. This is not relevant, the number of bars for bar count, because you're not measuring volume in bars because it's the DOM. Okay, same as all these other sessions in here. These are not really relevant. The use separate profile for evening session. Again, you're going to combine that with the DOM. So you want the evening session and regular trading hours for that one specific day set up. So your use separate profile for evening session is set to no. Okay. And then I always exclude evening session with profiles except for last day. I have this as a default because I don't really care what the previous day's um, pre-market session was. I'm only interested in the current day, right? Then maximum volume bar for width, I just set as window width. The difference when you adjust this for period length, it's just the width of the volume profile going across. It doesn't really make a difference for the DOM, but just set it to window width, okay? Maximum volume bar width percentage is quite important. So if I adjust this here, so we'll just adjust this to say, 70. I think 70 is the standard. If I adjust this to 70, it'll just extend the volume. So it depends on your personal preference. I typically like to have it a little bit less because if I have delta there, it tends to overlap a little, right? So set that to 40 or whatever your personal preference is, but that just extends the bars across the numbers, right? Now I have this set up where I have delta on the left and volume on the right, but you can do this for your own personal preference. I have right align volume bars set to yes, so that puts the volume bars to the right of the chart. And then the display volume in bars I have as total volume, again, which is the actual numbers, okay? Now you can set this if you want to different numbers. You can have bid volume minus ask volume, which is essentially going to tell you the delta, but we're going to add delta separately in there. So you want to just see what the total volume is at each price, okay? And that aggregates as more volume is traded at each price. So display volume in bars, set that to volume, right? Volume text threshold, I have this at 1, okay? Always display last profile within view, just set to yes. This is not really relevant for the DOM, to be honest. Volume bar calculation method, always set to total volume if your display volume in bars is total volume, okay? Now value area POC, peak and valley based on total volume, again set to yes. Bid volume and ask volume coloring method, I have this set to none for the DOM because I've got separate delta, so for that set that to none, okay? Draw outline when coloring the bid and ask volume, because that's set to yes. This is not going to be relevant, but draw difference of bid and ask volume using the percentage of max bar, set that to no. So we're going to run through these other settings because these are going to more come into impact when we're looking at the actual delta, right? So use transparent draw style, set that to yes. Transparency level, you can adjust this, it just depends on your preference. If you set it up a little bit higher, say we put it to 80, it'll just change the transparency level. So I'll click apply and you'll notice how it gets a little bit lighter. If you change it down to the other side and put it to 10, you'll notice how it becomes more prominent. I prefer having it something in the middle where it's set to 50, right? Now highlight the value area, this is going to be pretty important. These aesthetics and colors we're going to set in the subgraph settings, but you need to make sure that this is easy on the eye for yourself, and the colors that you pick are going to work for you, right? So the highlight value area I would always suggest is setting to yes. Now the extend value area, this is again personal preference. If you set this to yes, we'll just do end of period, okay? This will extend the line across to the value area if that's what you prefer. I personally don't need to see that because I've got the colors are pretty well stood out, but you can adjust that if you want. Again, the actual extending method doesn't really make a difference. But if you prefer it where you've got little lines or dashes or anything where the value area is, by all means set that to end of period and make sure that you're extending it. For me, the value area percentage is set to 70 as always. Highlight point of control set to yes. Now the point of control is going to be pretty important. I'll just show you what that is. This is the point of control. I've got mine highlighted to 20 evens here, right? And essentially, for anyone that's new to this, volume profile, right, and the point of control essentially shows you the point in that specific trading day where the most business was carried out. Okay, now that's extremely important in my eyes. It is the area that it was an equilibrium in the market, and where large traders basically conducted the most volume. So you should be noting that, right? So you need to make sure and highlight what that is. Okay, let me just drag this across to the right again. So the highlight point of control, make sure and set that, okay, to yes. The extend point of control, again, personal preference. I have a really um, obscure color, so it's easy for me to just instantly know, and I've been looking at these charts for years, so it just makes sense to me. But if you want to extend it, feel free to extend that. So we'll show you what that looks like. End of period. Again, it then extends it so it's extremely obvious, but it's up to yourself. I'd like to not extend that because it gets in the way of the numbers, right? And the future intersection method for volume profiles, this is only going to be if you're extending anything, or if you want to have VWAP on the DOM. I don't bother with any of that. I don't really need to know where VWAP is. It's normally going to be around the point of control anyway, to be honest with you. Now, volume bars draw method. Now for the DOM, I would always set this to fill volume bars. But for the actual chart, you can get a little bit creative because it may be easier on the eye. So filled volume bars, or you can go something like hologram, which I think is a bit of a mess in the DOM, or you can go volume profile outline only. I just prefer for the DOM to have it as filled volume bars. It's really easy to instantly look at that and know exactly where you're at. So for the DOM specifically, volume bars draw method is filled. Okay, allowed side by side profiles in right hand side. I've got these as separate, so I've got this set to no. Okay, and we'll run through the other settings. Now I don't have anything else on for the peaks and valleys. Peaks and valleys is essentially a way for you to draw out in the DOM where low volume and high volume nodes are, okay, and what the sensitivity is going to be around that. If you would like to draw them on, feel free. I just don't think it's completely necessary, to be honest with you. Doesn't pertain to my actual strategy anyways. Okay, and this is going to be colors that you can adjust for POC percentage. I've never bothered adjusting these at all. And the text font size, you can adjust that. You can also adjust it in the actual subgraph settings. So we're going to do it. We're going to do it in there, and that is actually it. To be honest, there's nothing else in here for the DOM that you really need to change. It's very straightforward settings for there. So to go into subgraph, this is where you're going to do all the aesthetics and colors for what you actually want. The POC point of control is going to be the color that you select. I've got mine selected as yellow, and there's the transparency level for fill styles. If you have extended the point of control, this is the part where you can adjust the dash or the width or anything around that. If you want to do that, this is the part where you can adjust the colors and extension lines. Okay. Now, the value area and outline color. This is you need to make sure that you're coloring this so that you can recognize instantly. I've got mine set to a light green and a black. The first color that you select, okay, for the value area and outline is going to be the actual fill color, and the black is going to be so that it looks a little bit more prominent. So I'll change this just so you can see what it looks like, right? If I change that to red, you can see it draws the outline color to red. If you put it to white, it will do that in white. Okay, I personally just have this to black so it kind of makes it pop a little bit. Okay, and then if you change this say to red here, it will change it to red, but I prefer the cool green color I had, so put whatever colors you want in there. This is for the value area, so there'll be a value area high and a value area low. I don't typically extend these lines as already discussed because I can tell as soon as it starts to turn grey we're out of value. and from the high side and the low side. Now, if I go to the volume bar, the volume numbers in text color, this is where you're going to change these colors here. If we put this to black, we'll just adjust this and see. Okay, this changes what the colors are. The colors are for the text. Okay, so obviously put that white or whatever color you want, but I can't imagine it being anything else other than white. Okay, now the width and size is going to be the font. I'll just increase this to 10. You can see it increases it. I feel that's a bit big, so I have mine set to 8 under the width and size. Okay. Now the volume bars outline and fill color. This is the part that is outside of value. Okay. Now for this one, the first box that you're coloring is going to be the outline, and then the white is going to be the the color for the fill box. So I've mine set to black again to pop, and white. And the reason why it looks grey is because there's a transparency in here of 75, right? So set these colors whatever you want, but the objective is you should be able to easily look at this DOM and instantaneously know where the POC is, where's value, where's out of value, and where is price relative to that, right? Now, again, if you want to draw any labels around this, I suppose you can. Regarding your value area high and value area low side of things, and you want to draw extension lines, if you ever want to put labels beside it, you can click this value label and name label, and then you can type this in and it'll essentially let you know that that's the POC. But if you have your colors correctly, then it shouldn't really be any problem, to be honest with you. You should instantly know just by your color schemes, okay? But make sure and adjust the text correctly, right? Um, and that is going to be it for volume profile for on the DOM, okay? So we'll get rid of that. Make sure when you're done you click apply. If you're adding this to any other charts moving forward, you can go to set defaults, um, and then ultimately that you just need to then go and add it to other charts, and you don't need to change all the settings again once you set defaults, right? Keeps it really straightforward. Now delta is next. Okay, we'll go into delta. Now, depending on how you've configured this, I typically prefer to have delta on the left and volume profile on the right. If you prefer to have it, the opposite way, where you're going to have volume profile on the left and delta on the right, you maybe not even want to know the numbers. It all just depends on your personal preference for how you want to set it up. But this is going to be how I've got it configured, as I find it's easy for me to look at. Okay, so regarding the delta, the draw mode again is going to be volume profile. Okay, it's this, you're going to be refreshing this constantly anyway, so it's not really going to be that relevant. So if you just want to put it for most recent start time again, so if it was the multiple profiles, that's because it's down long. Okay, here's right in front of me. Sorry, one period from most recent period start to end, right? Go for that, but it doesn't really matter because you're going to be refreshing this constantly anyway, right? So crack through the same settings, set independent volume profile for TPO set to no. The period time is always going to be days, right? None of these settings again are applicable. None of the start and end time is applicable again. Same settings for DOM, just make sure you're running through them. The use separate profile for evening session, set to no. Okay, now the meat and potatoes of this, okay, is you're going to need to make sure that you're not extending too much to overlap. So make sure the maximum volume bar with width percentage is set to a lower amount, so it's not extending. I've got mine set to 30. If you put this up to 70, I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, it makes a big difference. It then ultimately extends it along, but you can then see where all the volume or the positive delta come in there. Okay, you can see that. If you want to make your DOM slightly bigger, this is your own personal preference. I can look at the numbers, and this is where I have the numbers come in. If you don't want the numbers, we can disable that. If you've got the volume profile set to the right, then you're going to need to make sure that right align volume bars for delta is set to no, okay, or vice versa, depending on how you've got it configured, right? Now, the right align, sorry, the display volume in bars, okay, which is ask volume minus bid volume. This is pretty much the most important part of this setting, right? The ask volume minus bid volume is essentially going to be telling you what the delta is, right? So that just tells you at this specific price, since the last time you refreshed, how basically what size is more dominant. Is it going to be selling, which is negative delta, or is it going to be the buyers with positive delta, right? So make sure you've got ask volume minus bid volume set for that side. The volume text threshold, just again set to 0 or 1, it doesn't make any real difference, okay? And again, always display last profile within view set to yes. The volume bar calculation method, you need to then set that to ask volume minus bid volume again. Okay, the evaluator POC peak and valley based, again, just set to no because we're not going to use that. The bid volume and ask volume coloring method, you want to do the difference of bid and ask volume coloring, okay? Make sure that that's the one you tick because this is only going to be delta. You're not really interested in the volume that's there, okay? And draw outline when coloring bid and ask volume, set to yes. Difference of bid ask volume coloring method set to 100%. You can adjust the transparency level again for this if you like. That's going to be your own personal preference. You don't need to highlight any of the value areas or extend any of that for delta. I don't think that's necessary, to be honest. Again, if you want to do that, feel free. Okay. Now, regarding the volume bars draw method, I've got filled volume bars again. You can see what that looks like if you want. Okay, you can adjust all of this. I personally think filled volume bars is ample. You can make it hologram if you want to see, but I think filled volume bars is the simplest to look at. Again, personal preference, but adjust that how you see fit. Allowed side by side profiles on right hand side. If you're wanting them all be on the right hand side, then set that to yes. If you're wanting them to be separate like how you see on this chart, then make sure you've got this set to no. Okay, if you're doing any form of extension lines or anything and peaks and valleys, then essentially make sure you're working all this out. I don't think it's necessary, to be honest with you, because you'll have lines literally all over the DOM. Okay, now the align to far right, make sure you've got that set to no, so it puts it on the left hand side. Okay, and that is it for delta. You need to get to the proper coloring side of things, so your bid volume and ask volume coloring method. People always screw this up. Okay, any trades that are carried out on the bid is selling, so make that red, and any volume that's carried out in the ask, because when you're buying you pay the ask, is I've got set to blue. I prefer blue to buying than green. If you want to set it to a green like so, do whatever the hell you want. But I've typically got it set to blue because it's, my DOM is blue and I just prefer the colors, right? Now the volume numbers and text color, again, set that to whatever colors you want. I've got mine set to white just so it's the same, right? And then you can adjust the width and size again for that, and that should be you. Your outline colors, okay, the volume bar outline, if you want to adjust that, I've got mine set to white. If you adjust the volume bar outline and put that to black, you can see what it looks like. Okay, I've got mine set to white, so it pops that little bit more so I can actually see it on this side. But if you want to set that to black, you sure can. It's up to yourself. Set your own coloring methods. Do whatever you fancy, because it has to resonate with you for these colors, right? Okay, so that should be you set up for Delta. When you're done, make sure click apply and OK, right? And then you should have all of that set up for the value areas, okay, and for POCs, value areas, and the delta for the DOM, right? Now we're going to cover this first actually while we're actually on the DOM rather than shifting back and forward. Now I have a hotkey assigned here, essentially to clear the DOM for the last minute. And if you guys didn't know, the DOM it doesn't actually affect what you're seeing on the DOM per se, for the order flow it's coming in, but you can set the periods in minutes for the DOM. So if I go to do that, you go to chart settings, and then go to bar periods, and then you've got days, minutes, seconds, milliseconds. I've got this set to 1 minute, so make sure you've got that set to 1 minute. And then we can assign um, we can assign a hotkey to do this. So I've got mine as Control Alt Z just because it's close to the fingers, and when I press this, it then gives me the last minute of what's been hit for dominant side on the DOM, which I feel is pretty handy, right? So in order to configure this, you need to go to your DOM, and then you need to go to Analysis Studies, and you need to go to Volume Reset. And I'm just going to make sure that I had one set for Volume Profile. I don't think it really matters, to be honest. So, quick tip here, just to make this fluid, right? Your delta, so you can distinguish them, open up your delta volume profile under the short name it delta here. Just make your life a little bit easier so you can determine which is which. Once you're done, press apply and OK. And then it's your volume by price reset button. Make sure and add this, right? So you add that across, and then you open that up, okay? And then you need to volume by price study reference. You need to make sure and select your short name one that you've just added so it's easy to distinguish. Select that and then set your ACS control bar button of reset to 1, okay? So once you've done that, we're then going to add the hotkey for this, right? Now I'm going to give you all these cool little tidbits while we're in one and try and smash through this because I appreciate it's a long video, okay? So to quickly add this hotkey, you go to Global Settings, Customize Keyboard Shortcuts under Global Settings, and then Custom Trade Keyboard Shortcuts, if I remember correctly. I don't remember correctly. Where is this? Here, right here. Custom Study Control Bar Keyboard Shortcuts. It will be under. So when you're in here, make sure you go to Custom Study Control Bar Keyboard Shortcuts. Again, these videos are off the cuff, by the way. I'm just making sure you guys have this content so it's all set up correctly, right? So Custom Study Control Bar button. Okay, make sure that you've got that set to 1. If you set that to 2 in the study reference and you're clearing another couple of things, it needs to correspond to what button you're using. Okay, and it's the ACS tool keyboard shortcuts. You've got it set to 1, and then you're setting your own configuration for your hotkeys. So to do that, I've got, as I said, I've got mine set to Control Alt and Z. Once you're done, click Assign, press OK, and you're done. Now, quick thing about this, you can only reset the DOM or the delta every that you have set up. So if you have this set up for every 5 minutes, then it won't reset until the next 5 minutes, for example. And then you can do Control Alt hotkey or hit your hotkey so that it refreshes, right? Just something to bear in mind. Okay, so we've now done the DOM. Okay, we now need to go. So regarding the chart volume profile, we'll move on to that next. Okay, now take your standard chart book that you have. This is just a standard Sierra um, default chart, which is the open, high, low, close bars. I'm just going to use this as an example. I already have the volume profile for my charts configured, so we can run through all of the settings. Okay, so to bring up that, you want to go to analysis studies and then go to volume by price. Okay, and you want to have set up multiple profiles based on fixed time. We'll add this to the chart first so that you can get a visualization of what you're looking at. Okay, so essentially what this is, we'll run through these settings. This right now is showing the regular trading hours, okay, for the most recent sessions. When it moves on to the next day, you will have the evening or pre-market session as well as regular trading hours. I prefer to have these aligned to the right, and then on the current next day session that you can see here, this then starts to trade. Clearly the settings for this chart is a little bit off. So if I go to chart settings, and then go to session times, we can see that this is slightly off, which is why there is volume at the right hand side instantly. So I'm in GMT, so I'm just going to set this. Make sure that you have this all configured correctly, otherwise your volume profile is going to be a little bit wonky. So set this to 2201, and that is fine for everything else, and you'll notice that this should instantly change. Once you configure that, there we go. So it makes a big difference when you've got the correct settings. So this is the regular trading hours for the session that hits it on the right. This is the evening session, and then it doesn't give you pre-market or evening session from the previous day. This then shows you where the regular trading hours volume was for the previous day, right? So let's jump into the settings of this so you've got it all configured, right? This is going to be a configuration setup, and then we're going to probably do another video on how you can actually execute this, as it becomes extremely powerful when you've got this in confluence with the DOM and order flow trading. Okay, so let's go to analysis studies, or a quick way is right click the top of the screen and go to volume by price. Everything is the same for volume profiles, and tick per bar set to 1. If you're on a higher time frame, adjust this to 2 or 3. The volume graph period, make sure you've got it set to multiple profiles based on fixed time. Okay, your set is independent profile, volume profile for TPO chart. That's only if you're using market profile, which we're not in this instance. Time period type is set to days, and again set to 1 for the fixed length. You're not adjusting any of this, these next two settings. The number of days to calculate set to 0, and basically Sierra will just work it out for you, which is great. The start date is not relevant because you're doing it based on session times. Okay. Use separate profile for evening session. You need to make sure that that is going to be set to yes, so that you can simply see on the chart that this is the evening session, and the far right is going to be the regular trading hours. So make sure that that is set to use separate profile for evening session is set to yes, and exclude evening session profile except for last day is set to yes. I'll show you what this looks like if you set it to no. It will basically combine other sessions into that, but it's always better to just adjust that so you're only seeing the last day as all the volume is carried out in the regular trading hours, right? Maximum volume I have from period length, so it doesn't take up the whole page. maximum volume bar width percentage. You can adjust this if it's taken up too much and it's too hard for you to see. Right align volume bars, I much prefer this being at the right, so set that to yes if that's what you prefer. Display volume in bars, I'm using the DOM for the volume to see in the numbers in the bars, so I don't typically have that set to yes. If you want to see that as well, then by all means set that. If you don't want to see it, display volume in bars is set to none. The volume text threshold not relevant if you're setting it to none. Okay. The volume bar calculation method is going to be total volume. Okay. And then the value area POC and peak and valley based on total volume, set that to yes. You're not going to do any bid and ask volume because you can have that on the DOM, but if you want to add in delta, it's a similar method where you can add in delta there. Don't think it's going to be completely necessary, so adjust that if how you see fit. Okay. And these other settings are going to not be relevant unless you're adjusting delta. Okay. Use transparent draw style, I always have this set to yes. Transparency level, if it's set to 50%. Highlight value area, we're going over the same stuff here, it's the same sort of idea. Whereas, so if you highlight the value area, I've got mine set to green, same color as the DOM. Okay. So make sure that you've got that highlighted, and your POC as well, which is going to be super important for you. Okay. Highlight POC, and again, if you want to do any form of extension lines, you can do so. If you want to extend that across to the chart, I don't bother as I can eyeball it, as we discussed when we were doing the depth of market. Okay. Now, filled volume bar method, this is interesting. You can actually adjust this a little bit, right? So if you want to go to fill volume bars, you can adjust this to hologram, okay? Where I know it looks a little bit weird, but you may prefer to actually adjust that. If you prefer, adjust this how you see fit. You can adjust the settings. I typically just go for volume bars. It's what I'm used to, right? The filled volume bars. Okay. Um, and that's pretty much it. You need to make sure and align to far right the volume profiles, as I like it for the current session that it's at the right, as it's right in my face where the value area is and where it's out of value. Okay, we actually closed the day right out of value at the high of day, which is weird. Okay, and that is pretty much it, to be honest with you. I go in and adjust the settings under subgraphs for this. Now, make sure and color your evening sessions different. We already sorted out the colors from this. It's the same coloring section, but evening session volume profile bars and outline, I've got mine set to red so I can easily distinguish what is the evening session for that one day and what's regular trading hours, right? So that's going to be the most important part. If you're doing any of the extension lines, you can adjust them in here, and any of the name labels and value labels, again, adjust them. And that is pretty much it, to be honest with you. That's how you configure volume profile, and you've got it both on the DOM and on your chart, and you can easily establish when you're looking at this, where's the point of control, where's the most volume and money been spent, and you can see that from the previous day. And typically the market moves from value area to value area and from point of control to point of control. You know, you should never really be taking trades round about these areas, to be perfectly honest with you. You should be waiting to trade at the extremes. You know, we covered this in the Discord and in the live stream where we were waiting for a sweep of the high here. The market ripped up, gave us a sweep of the high. We saw tons of absorption on the DOM, and then the market sold off, for example. Exact same this level here. You know, the market has essentially punched below this level. It gave a pretty extended sell-off into it, but then we reversed straight back up. The market did the exact same, which I actually took this at a relatively simple day today for Friday. I took this short here. The market just before we've opened, creeped up here. We then saw some absorption on the offer. I was selling here and I was out here, and I was done pretty much for the day, to be honest. So it was great. I was done before the market even opened, to be honest with you. So we'll run over a separate video about how to actually execute these trades and how to put it all together, as I'm trying to build a package so that you've got how to read the DOM, how to read volume profile, where all the correlations are together, and how it all comes together to in essence give you some confluence in your setups and provide confidence in your order flow. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to leave descriptions and links to the other videos where what is the best settings for the DOM, how to read order flow, live trade examples, everything will be in the description of this video. But please do all the YouTube things for me. Make sure and like and comment and subscribe. If you're feeling extra generous, there is a link to buy me a coffee. You know, it's only a couple of bucks, but I would greatly appreciate if you could do that. It helps keep me motivated and continually push out content for everyone. So, really appreciate if you can do everything and help out the YouTube algorithm for me. That would be great. So until the next one, hope you guys have a great evening. Okay, peace. You can only reset the DOM every bar period.